Okay, right. So I'm here to talk about vertical farming. I was asked to give a brief background. So I'm what's known as a founder director of Growing Underground in London, which was built about 7 years ago. Started off as 1 square meter, then we moved to 20 square meters, and then we built just just over 500 square meters. It grows microgreens, baby leaf products, and it's 33 meters underground in old air raid shelters, which are actually like a 5 meter diameter tunnel, which is split in half, and the top half is where the actual growing is done, and the bottom half is where a lot of the hydroponics is. I'm also director of GrowStack Limited, which is the company came out of the fact that we built that. So it was designed by myself and 2 other guys up here in Yorkshire, and it was quite a challenging site. You can imagine it was 175 steps down and then back up. There was a small lift, but everything had to be sized and made to fit into the tunnels and transportable to get them down there. GrowStack has since built some other vertical farms, one at Stockbridge Technology Centre, another one at the Hutton Institute. We've also designed a mobile unit, which has been goes to universities. 6 went to Copenhagen. We've got them in Prague, and we've had them in pop-up restaurants in London. We supply them to Chelsea Flower Show and things like that. So those are pictures of growing underground. It's all what's called ebb and flood technology. And what we do is that we will take a standard sort of horticultural equipment, but just put it into unusual settings. We are good at thinking outside the box and sort of developing the units. The lighting, the LED lighting, is Veloya tubes. These are L28s, and the spectrum is known as AP673L, and it's specifically designed for baby leaf and microgreens. The UMOL output there is at about 100 UMOLs. It looks quite bright, but it is. And the positive thing about that is it is slightly pink, that light, but you can work in that. Personally, the red-blue LEDs I find extremely difficult to work in and quite quickly give me a headache. What goes to making a vertical farm successful? There are quite a number of things you need to do before embarking on this. You need to understand the market that you're going for. So I'll give growing underground as an example. I didn't want to deal with supermarkets to start with, and we went to Covent Garden, New Covent Garden, which is a wholesale market in London, and we had some interest. There were already microgreens on the market, but they were commanding quite a reasonable price. 18 months later, they were more commodity. Price had come down, making it more challenging to make a vertical farm profitable. So you need to decide what your market is, what you're actually going to grow, where you're going to sell it, what the volumes are, and you need to take time, make sure you've got this plan correct. You then obviously need a good business plan, look at the finances, how are you going to fund it, and the hard thing, although it's getting easier, was actually finding the right advice. Now, I've been in horticulture all my working life, which is 40+ years, and I've worked in a lot of different parts of the horticultural industry. So I was able to use my own advice, if you like, and I knew where to go to find the right information on nutrition and things like that. The next thing you really need to do is decide what sort of growing system. So there are lots of different hydroponic systems. So you've got ebb and flood system, which is literally a bench which you fill once, twice, or as many times as you want during the day, to about 20 mil deep, and that gives the plants that are grown on a mat a watering from the base. A variation on that is what's called aeroponics, where you are literally spraying water and nutrients up against the bottom of the trays, and so feeding the crops. You have nutrient film technique, which is a channel on a 1 in 75 slope with a film of water, and then you use either net pots or rockwool cubes or some sort of pot, and that sits in the channel and is fed either an intermittent feed or continuous flow of water. There are other systems, rockwool systems, there's deep water culture, but deep water culture doesn't really fit to multi-level growing systems. Again, deciding on what the building is. So obviously growing underground was very unusual. Most people are building in warehouses, but there is interest in disused buildings. I've been approached about disused churches. There is some potential now in the refurbishment of the high streets. What can we go back to the high street with? So there is some possibilities there. So it's, you know, again, tied up with understanding your marketplace, who you're selling to, and the volumes, etc. Then you need a good design that works with the site, and you need to think about not just now but the future. Where are you going with it? Is it your ambition to be feeding the local population, or are you aiming to become a really big supplier? I mean, there are now vertical farms built of 8,000 square meters of growing area, and these are vast and they cost millions of pounds to build. One of the really key bits, whether you're small, medium or large, is about hygiene standards. Hygiene is really, really important. Seed have potentially E. coli and salmonella on the seed coat. So you need to source your seed from a reputable source. Everybody carries bacteria on their hands and their clothes, and you need to wash your hands, you need to wear protective clothing, and because at the end of the day, you're producing food that other people are going to eat. And so I can't stress, you know, you're only as good as your last or first food poisoning outbreak. And there have been some spectacular ones in the past. The next two items, packaging. Again, depends on your market, where you're going, what packaging do you want to use. These days, there's a lot of recyclable packaging, compostable packaging. If you're selling them as living products, the base, whatever they're growing in, is wet, and some of the compostable packaging will actually collapse fairly quickly. So you need to think about that. Logistics, how are you going to get your product around? If you're serving the local community, you know, it's time. Just to think, if somebody says they want 2 30-gram packs of red amaranth and they're 10 miles away, it's not cost effective to get in a van to drive that far and back for 2 packs. So these are GrowStacks. The top right picture is actually of Chelsea Flower Show, where they were on one of the big stands there. The GrowStack on the left, that one is has 5 racks on it, which is fairly unusual. Went into a sandwich making company who really just wanted to grow salad mustard, which is mustard and cress. The advantage to him was saved on food miles. He was able to control hygiene to a high standard, and he reduced bacterial contamination on his sandwiches by a full log reduction. It was a sandwich production facilities on large scale operations are very, very high standards of hygiene. And so having this on the premises was a significant step forward for him, and he's now got 10 GrowStacks growing fairly simple products that are going straight in, and he can production plan to within half a day of his requirements. The middle picture just shows some no. No, I've got to go. Sorry, daughters. Where was I? Oh yeah. So this little picture just shows crops growing under some different lights. A company wanted to try. The top one is quite a white light. The middle one was a red blue, and the bottom one is another slightly different white light. But GrowStacks, we could put whatever people want on them. So what types of buildings do you have? You need a building that is easily cleaned, walls and floors. You need to look at the ceilings as well. It should be insulated. Depending on what lights you use, you will get heat from the lights, but you need to keep the room enclosed, preferably with some sort of control over the amount of air coming in and out of it. Use white wall paneling, reflects light back, which is really important, but this is like what's called fridge paneling. It's very easy to keep clean, and it is easy to wash down. Does the building have the right utilities? Electricity, water, drainage systems, storage space, fridging, which can be built, etc. But you need to be able to, sometimes you get a blockage on a bench and the water overflows. So you need to be able to move that water to a drain. You also, from time to time, have to dump the solutions, especially if you're on recirculating systems. You can get to imbalances of nutrition, etc. Electricity, well, it is the sort of biggest expenditure really with a vertical farm. Growing underground are aiming to be zero carbon, but they only buy green energy. But of course, there's a cost to that, and it all has to be built into your business plan. So, as I said, there's sort of different types of vertical farms: ebb and flood irrigation, NFT, aeroponics, deep water. I wouldn't recommend. And if you're really starting with extremely basic, then you're down to a hand watering system. On the LEDs, I would not recommend buying cheap Chinese. They tend not to be particularly good spectrums. They're also, I've noticed with Chinese ones, they have a habit of popping, where because you're working in a wet environment, moisture can get in, and they just, as soon as water gets in, they stop working. The spectrums out there, there's a vast improvement now in LED technology. Again, when I first built Growing Underground, we tested Philips, which were fine, but they had a heat footprint of 59 degrees centigrade. The Veloya tubes were good, and they only had a 27-degree temperature footprint. I was actually visited by somebody from Singapore who had put an entire warehouse of multi-level, all with Philips, and he couldn't get the temperature down below 60 degrees centigrade. He asked my advice, and I said, unfortunately, you're gonna have to take it all out and start again. So, you know, think about the lights, dependent on the crops. LEDs have come down in price, but they're still expensive. And if you want, so to give you an idea, microgreens, 100 UMOL, 120. Some people talk about as low as 90 UMOL. Baby leaf products really need to be about 150 to 250. If you want to grow bigger crops, if you want to get into some medicinal crops, you can be looking at 600 UMOL, which means a lot of heavy duty lights. So fertigation systems, so you can do it by hand on a very small unit, what I call bucket chemistry. You can buy liquid feeds off the shelf. They are not particularly accurate, and but you can grow plants. You can have a basic injection system, such as a dosatron unit, which literally works on water passing over, and it manually lifts, and you just set 1 in 100 or 1 in 200 on them. Proper hydroponic systems, 2-tank systems with pH, so an A and a B tank. The reason you have 2 tanks is that if you put all the concentrates into 1 tank, you get a chemical reaction, and in particular things like iron actually flocculate out. By that I mean they actually come out of solution, and you'll find all your iron sitting in the bottom of the tank, and the plants will very quickly start to be yellow and saying that they need some iron input. Raw material selection is really important. So growing medias, there are some new ones coming along. They're a little bit away. Rock wool is fairly common used. Grow felt is recycled carpet, so it's predominantly wool based. It has a little bit of latex in it, and it has a little bit of polypropylene. Again, at the moment, it's not something, it's used extensively, but we need to get away from it because of the risk of microplastics. Coir is something that people use. The problem with coir and compost is they come out and go into the solution. If you're recirculating, it causes problems because you get bacteria growing quite readily in the solution, and can cause problems. So not only plant pathogens but human pathogens, and things like sorry, it's gone. I'll think of it in a minute. But the Pseudomonas, which is not it's a spoilage organism. It's not particularly harmful to humans. I've written other there. I'm working at the moment with the university on a gel-based growing media, which is made from plant material, is 100% compostable, but I would think that's at least 2 years away. Fertilizers can be made from straits. That means things like potassium nitrate, calcium nitrate, magnesium sulfate, monopotassium phosphate. And to make a proper mix, you need all the microelements right down to molybdenum, which even in the concentrated tank, you only say 100 litre of concentrate, you might put 10 grams in. There are branded mix, both solid and liquid formulations, which can be bought from various trading companies. You'll see them on hydroponic companies that trade online. I mentioned seed. So I work quite closely with CN Seeds, not my company. They're very good suppliers to vertical farms, and when you come to start getting bigger, you need traceability. You need to be buying seed in bulk, and you need to send it away for micro testing. CNCs are extremely helpful on that front. Poser Seeds is another good company. There are a number of them around, and everybody has their preferences. You should always buy naked seed. A lot of seeds are treated with pesticides or fungicides. We've all heard about the nicotinoids on cereals and rapeseed, which was causing a lot of problem with bees. The problem if you're growing microgreens and baby leaf, if they are treated seed, you'll get residues in the product. And the government have a testing regime mainly based around supermarkets, but you run the risk of having levels of pesticides in your product that is unacceptable. So market research, so it depends where you are, you know, local shops, restaurants, businesses. We talked earlier about this. You need to understand what your customers want, what the range of crops and the volumes are important. You can't build a business unless you know what they want and how much. So does a customer want one delivery a week, and how many do they want a kilo of product? When I was talking with chefs in London who raved about the products and the flavour, and then he said, well, how much will you buy? And we sold microgreens in 30-gram packs, and he said, well, you know, I do 200 covers a day, and I'll put 3 sprigs on each plate. So I only need 50 grams a day. You can't build a business on 50 grams a day. It's really, really difficult. And I was saying, you know, come on, don't just put 3 sprigs on. Why don't you put a handful on? You know, this is something to celebrate. There's the fantastic flavors and all the rest of it. They London restaurants, it's all about architecture on the plate, and a certain amount to do with flavor, obviously. The other point is that you cannot grow everything. There are hundreds of herbs out there, all very suitable for vertical farming. I think in the early days we grew between 20 and 30 different species of herbs, and it was too many. And you very quickly find out which of those. So coriander, dill, pea shoots, these were top ones. Basil, everybody likes basil. But if you're growing red amaranth, yes, it's pretty, but you don't sell a huge amount. Purple radish, people like, but again, they don't buy lots of it. So you really need to understand what your customers want. And, you know, I mean, if you get really close to them, you can say, well, are you forward planning, let's say, for Christmas, and you want something special? And there's a type of basil called Christmas basil, which has got a cinnamon flavour. You know, you could probably, if you get enough people together, you know, you could get a reasonable thing by doing seasonal mixes. So yeah, I mean, it's important to know what you're packing in, whether you're selling living or cut products, and you know, on what size. So let's say basil, microgreen basil is 2 cotyledons and the show of a first true leaf, but 28-day basil could be 10, 12 centimeters tall. So, and you could sell that as a pot grown, like a living basil plant, or you could sell it as a cut product. So it's really challenging to understand the market. And so if you're growing microgreen, we'll stay with basil, and it takes you 10 days from sowing to getting a small plant that you can cut. That's 10 days. There's a couple of days in the dark, and then 10 days or 8 days under the lights. That then there's a cost of producing that. In other words, the amount of electricity burn. If you are producing basil that is a 28-day crop, so you've 28 days under lights, which obviously is costing you a lot more. So you really need to understand the timings on the crops and the cost of producing them, and that then dictates the price at which you're going to try and sell them at. And bearing in mind, these products are available, especially in the summer. They're produced in this country in polytunnels or under glass, and they're very well set up. And so you have a challenge to beat their price or be competitive. So just summing up this little bit, you need to think out your business plan carefully, talk to potential customers, get a really good feel for your market. Things complicated to start with. Hygiene is really important for the crops and human consumption. And sales and marketing volume anticipate should be worked out and what the customer expectations are. So this is just a little bit about the new GrowStack. This is there'll be 2 versions. It's just in design at the moment. We're about to build them. The left-hand one, as I look at it on the screen, is what we call our basic unit. And in the drawer is all the electrics, the dosing system, the holding tank, UV filters, pumps, etc. And the high-tech version, which is totally enclosed, can have up to about 20 sensors per level, aimed at research personnel. We've got some inquiries for front of house for people coming into a restaurant to have a look and see fresh produce there on display for them. And so there's different marketplaces that we're looking at. And this is it's a new dosing unit that I've recently found, and we are using these on GrowStacks. So each level of GrowStack is about 1 square meter, just under. This will probably do up to about 40 square meters. So if you're starting a small farm, you could this would deal with about 40 square meters of growing area. So this is the GrowStack website, and those are my contact details. And that, I believe, is that. So, okay. Hopefully that made sense to people. You know, feel free to fire away questions.
Thanks so much for that, Chris. There were some really interesting things going on there, and I was really interested to see these GrowStacks and I was just wondering what the sort of time scale was for when you imagine. Do you anticipate these being something that will be commercially available anytime soon? Do you think? Or
I would guess 3 months. We still have a few of our existing GrowStacks, which you can were the ones in the photographs, but we're not manufacturing any more of those. We're concentrating on the development of this one. We got a grant to redevelop it. One of the things I discovered, and you guys with the V Farm ones, our first one wouldn't fit through a standard door. This one, the new one, is specifically designed. It will go through any standard door, and it's a big mistake. Now the V Farm unit is 2.2 meters tall, and those people who've bought them will know they've probably had difficulty getting them into places.
Yeah, I think ours are about 2.4 meters tall. So okay. Yeah, it's it is okay, but it does require a bit of extra headroom, so to speak. And,
and that's something we learned. You know, we've been selling the first design GrowStack for what, 4 or 5 years now, and it was time. I mean, with what happened with COVID, business went very quiet. We decided to look at the business, redo the website, and redesign the GrowStack. It's just taken slightly longer than I wished for.
Oh, very good. Well, thank you so much. Does anyone have any further questions for Chris? While we've got him here, I know I've got loads of questions for Chris. Plenty of things I'd like to talk about, but perhaps we should postpone that to
Craig wants to have a.
Craig.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, just out of curiosity, what do you sort of anticipate the price point for both systems, the high tech and the standard?
The GrowStack, we think will come in at about £7,000, and that the basic one will have the little nutritional dosing unit on it. And it will have, I should have said it will have a remote control from either your phone or your tablet, laptop. They'll both do that. The research one, we think will start about 15,000, but depending on what sensors people want. So if they want spectral cameras, dissolved oxygen probes, I mean, let alone just CO2, temperature, humidity. I mean, one company, they want about 40 sensing points, wind speed, because it's going to have a miniature HVAC system on it, and things like that. So some of them could cost in excess of 30,000 for the pure research people. I'm trying to keep the cost down as much as possible, but steel is going up in price. Aluminium has gone up this month in price. Brexit effect, those units from Europe, we've handling charges to pay, which before there was nothing really, but you've got customs clearance, you've got agents fees. So unfortunately, we were hoping to bring it in under the original cost of the first one. I'm looking to try and source as much of it in the UK. There's an interesting company called Vertically Urban who are making LEDs in this country, and they're very good quality. I've done quite a lot of work with them. And there's quite a lot of interest, I mean, again, on the LEDs. For research ones, they're multi-channeling LEDs with 6 channels, and so you can play with the spectrums. So there's, you know, so I'm sorry to be a bit woolly on that one, but it depends what the client wants. We try really hard to listen to what the client thinks they want and pull it together for them, and we will bespoke build some of them. The frame will be the same, the dosing equipment will be pretty much the same, but we can add on as much or as little as people want. So if somebody just wanted a basic GrowStack without the dosing equipment, that will bring the cost down by something like £1,200. So
Very
you know,
interesting. Well, very good. Does anybody have any other questions for Chris before we move on to the activity project?
Can I ask a question, Luke?
Sorry?
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course,
sorry.
of course.
Sorry, I've just put the wrong emoji up there, so ignore that emoji. Oh dear, I'm trying to be clever and I can't. Based on your experience, Chris, what comes to mind as your top 3 or top 5 crops someone should have a look at as a new entrant to this area of growing? Someone in a rural area, but with maybe a good selection of good quality restaurants, or the possibility of selling online. So, and also looking for something relatively straightforward to grow as a starting startup.
Yeah, I mean, certainly things like Wild Rocket. Arugula, it's big coriander, but pea shoots are very easy to grow. You need to source the peas, again, CNCs do them. On lettuce types, they really, you know, they're looking for interesting shapes like oak leaf and different colors, so you can get green, yellow, and red oak leaves. But it's really, this is where it's really important for you to go and talk to your customers, understand what they want. There are lots of very interesting things out there. I'd love to be able to learn how to grow samphire. I think it has great potential for vertical farms, but I've tried, I've got the seed, and you know, I get about 2 plants out of 20 grams of seed, and at the moment I haven't had the time to do any more work on it. There's the other thing, I think there are different markets now, not just the restaurant trade. You've got medical plants, so homeopathic medicines. I was talking to somebody the other day who's into medicines for pets. You know, so one of the nice things about vertical farming, you've got pretty much control over the environment. You're giving the plants optimum growing conditions, so you can get your production 12 months of the year. And I'd say that is really helpful when you're trying to plan out how much product you're going to produce to customers' requirements. But there's more interest in cosmetics. You'd be amazed at the amount of natural plants. So we had a request to grow nettles for cosmetics. And again, you can get the seed, they grow really easily. So a bit of lateral thinking is really keen. The problems with microgreens are getting heavily done now. So I would never recommend anybody doing anything just on spec and hoping to sell it. You may sell it, but you won't achieve the prices that you really want. You know, vertical farming is expensive. the capital expenditure up front is high, and you've got to have the confidence that you've got a part of the market, locally or nationally, that you can service.
Yeah, thank you, Chris. A lot of ideas there. Another one that you reminded me is someone saying there's a demand for specialty tortoise fresh leaves.
Yeah,
I can't, and I think that idea came from Craig, so to just give him the credits for that idea. Thank you for your time, Chris.
I'm fine. I met somebody who just grew grass because cats like to do their business. Instead of in a cat litter tray, they put a piece of turf down.
Okay.
You know, if you've got the market, why not?
Yeah.
But you know, there's juicing bars, restaurants, local greengrocers, farm shops, hotels. There's all sorts. Offices where they've got canteens. You know, why can't you supply to them?
Yeah, we've tried wheatgrass and barley grass, and it grows really well.
Yeah, yeah. The growing is not difficult. The hygiene is really important. I can't stress that enough, because most of these products you're going to grow will not be washed. They'll be eaten straight. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important insight there. And one of the things that we've been doing as part of our, that I'll get to shortly, is an ongoing program of workshops for participants in our program. And we've had input from environmental health officers, and we've approached them and specifically tried to get their perspectives on what they'll be looking for from vertical farming businesses. And it's interesting to hear some of those insights, and we'll come to talking a little bit about that later on. But it's a really big thing to bear in mind. That a lot of the growing isn't one of the least of our worries in some respects.
Yes. Yeah, I would agree with you, Luke. It is, to be honest, I spend an awful lot of time talking about hygiene than actually growing. And it's simple things, really. I was advising on a big unit in Italy, and I stressed, and then I see pictures on LinkedIn of the directors with their outdoor clothes on, standing, handling the crops, and it's like totally the wrong message going out. But you know, what can you do? I've done my bit. I've explained it, done the presentations on hygiene, talked about the risks, because at the end of the day, they risk their business. If they have a food scare, it'll kill the business in one go. So, but you know, it is worth stressing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Well, very good. I'd like to give a really big thanks to Chris for providing, I think, a completely unique insight to all the biggest sort of success stories in vertical farming, and we've been really privileged to hear that. So, really big thanks to you for supporting us in that.
You're welcome.